fan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Two Bros, One Beard.
That's right.
New year, new name, and
It's technically our first episode, but
first episode, new
same
name.
channel, new name.
That's right.
Yep.
So for today, we got another segment of Make a Fan Out of You, and this time around, it's going to be me trying to make a real lifelong Savatage fan out of Michael here.
Yep.
So let's see how I did. The album assignment in question here is Savatage's 1989 release, Gutter Ballet.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought this would be a good introduction. I know you already have heard Dead Winter Dead, but I wanted to get you into something in that original era, the original lineup, something with Chris on guitar, so something with John on vocals, and that kind of old school Savatage sound. So that's what I was really hoping to achieve here. But give me your initial impressions here, bro.
Well, but before I get into that, so this obviously you've been trying to get me into Savatage, probably more so than any other band for years now. You've been pushing for me to listen to it, and you gave me, I guess you had like extra copies of all the Zach Stevens fronted albums.
Yep.
And I did listen to all of them, and I liked all of them, but they didn't have, or I didn't, give it repeat listens. I listened to them all the way through. Once I enjoyed them all, and I kind of got into Zach Stevens after that, and I checked out, he had a new band called Archangel, I think it was called, on Frontiers Records, and I really enjoyed that, and he did some guest work on some other stuff, and so I definitely explored that, but for whatever reason, I never got into the John Oliva fronted Savatage albums. I want to say because I only heard his voice on that one Avantasia record. Was he on Angel of Babylon, I think?
Yes.
And I just didn't like that song at the time. That was a long time ago. I just don't think I was ready for his voice. But so my initial reaction to Gutter Ballet is I really wish I checked them out years ago. I sincerely apologize. I should have taken the time years ago. His voice, I'm completely blown away by his voice now. I wanted to wait to tell you that I started diving into Streets today.
Okay.
Because I was so pumped. I was trying to, he's all I want to listen to right now, but I love his voice. Now I'm hooked.
Right on.
So I already added pretty much all their other albums with him on lead vocals to my iTunes library, so I'm good to go for the next month probably. But yeah, so
nice.
so I finally give this album my undivided attention, and I really love it. I will say the songs that stand out to me the most are the ones that remind me of TSO. Sure. Anything that seems to be, or the songs seem to be structured around his piano playing or keyboard playing, where I feel like the songs initially started with him sitting at the piano and kind of crafting it out. Reminds me, their songwriting style reminds me a little bit of Queen, where it feels like Freddie Mercury is kind of the main creative force. And as much as I really like Chris Oliva's guitar playing, but I almost like him playing more of just a melody line rather than just straightforward riff, even though he writes some crazy riffs, and he's quite a guitar player. I wish I would have gotten into him years ago. He seems, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, he seems to be like on a level of like a Steve Morse. Is he kind of in his conversation, or what would you say?
Well, I mean,
not stylistically, but as far as just pure ability. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of who's the first Dio guitar player? Can't think of his name.
Vivian Campbell.
He's better than Vivian, but he reminds me of him quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember, because I don't think Chris did a ton of interviews when he was alive. But I'm trying to remember, what would he have talked about as far as his personal influences? I mean, obviously Eddie Van Halen is up there.
Yeah. I mean, his solos, his tapping is what reminded me. But he seems like he's a level above Eddie Van Halen is that?
I would say
was
so.
he considered one of the greats, in his time, or?
I think he's still criminally underrated, honestly.
Okay.
It's too bad. I mean, he only, I think he was 30
Oh
when
wow!
he passed away, but I mean, just
that young.
The whole scope of work, all the way to Edge of Thorns. I mean, there's so much good stuff that he did. He was an amazing player. I mean, he was notorious for, nailing some of these solos in one take. As a matter of fact, When the Crowds Are Gone, I believe, was a one take solo.
Oh wow!
But then you get a feel for, like Silk and Steel.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing, multiple acoustics, and they're layered on top of each other, and it's so like his finger styling was amazing. His like you said, his riff writing was amazing. His and his soloing is iconic. Probably influenced a lot of players, but I think it's one of those things where they were always a band that was ahead of its time and never really quite got its due. And I think only now the songwriting is appreciated because it's in that context of Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Because I mean,
I think that's probably
every tour they pull a new Savatage song in. It seems every
okay.
Single, and they did off of Streets. Believe is the big closing track.
Yeah.
And they re-recorded that for Night Castle. So including the melody line and all that stuff that Chris wrote. So I mean, he'll I think one day we'll fully get his credit, but an amazing player. And and his playing is all over this. That's one thing is like, you'll listen to it and it's like there's a riff, but he's just like constantly soloing, this whole album.
Yeah, shredding like crazy.
Yeah, but he was something else. I've heard John talk about how a lot of their songs, even if Chris started it, he'd have like a riff or something like that, and then he would just go to John and be like, "You finish it," and or the other way around or something. So, they definitely they worked closely with one another, and then a lot of let's say the best lyrics on the album, those came from Paul. I think a song like easily my least favorite song on the album is "She's in Love," because I just think the lyrics are a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of like the one kind of straight rock song. And actually, the riff reminded me a little bit of Dio's "We Rock," kind of.
Yeah. I mean, it's a melodically a cool song.
Yeah.
I just like I said, I think the lyrics are a little ridiculous. Like it's would have been better suited for like Motley Crue or something like that. But that tells me John wrote those lyrics, because he'll be the first to tell you he's not a lyric writer.
So he's not. So Paul wrote most of their lyrics, you would say? Okay.
Well, he wrote, I want to say the majority, starting with Hall of the Mountain King and then Gutter Ballet. I believe he would have written all of it for Streets.
Oh, okay.
And probably all of it for Edge of Thorns. I don't know if Chris had any, hand in lyric writing ever. I don't know the answer to that. I think after that, it was probably all Paul.
Okay.
Because, and so like the kind of inspiration for some of these songs, When the Crowds Are Gone, Gutter Ballet, those songs would be part of the original play that Paul O'Neill wrote called Streets. Or actually, I think it was called Gutter. Maybe
this album kind of. I mean, I don't think it's not a concept album, but it kind of feels like it, because there's kind of those musical interludes in between, and there's so many different styles. It kind of felt similar to Streets. I mean, I'm not all the way through it yet, but
yeah, it's kind of interesting. The track listing is interesting because it starts off with a good kind of grooving like heavy song, and then it's like the epic kind of piano orchestrated piece, then an instrumental, then another piano led kind of orchestral piece.
Yeah.
Then
they
another
seem to kind of go back and forth between those styles of writing.
And then the record originally ended with Summer's Rain. That was the closing track, which, when you listen to it in context, it makes a lot of sense. That's like, obviously a closer. Thorazine Shuffle was a bonus track.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it's kind of tacked on at the end there. But but yeah, like I was mentioning, Gutter Ballet and When the Crowds Are Gone, story-wise, were part of that original play that Paul wrote, and then they would go on and kind of flesh out the rest of the story on Streets.
Oh, okay, cool.
So my understanding is that of the handful of TSO projects that are in progress that have not been released yet, one of them is a TSO version of Streets, and I believe would probably include those two songs, if not maybe some of the lost songs on Streets. Streets was originally like a double album, and a lot of those tracks got lost. But there's actually a full narrated version, which is the one I was telling you about when we did our first top 5. But we'll have to cover Streets another day. But yeah, I'm glad you really dig it, and
definitely,
it's obviously the perfect record to pull from.
Yeah,
from
good starter
the older catalog.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, so I'll just say, yeah, like I said, my favorite tracks are the title track, Gutter Ballet, and When the Crowds Are Gone. Nice. I didn't know those were tied to Streets at all, but I like obviously the opening track. I would say the first half of the album I just enjoyed more, but I also liked songs like Hounds.
Yeah.
On the second half, and Mentally Yours was the Unholy something.
The Unholy, yeah.
The Unholy was a great song too, but I would say I enjoyed the first half more.
Yeah.
And then just vocally, I didn't know he kind of sang in more of a cleaner style. I only heard kind of that, almost the way I describe it, it's like a sinister sound. It's so unique.
Yeah.
And kind of dark. But then he has so many elements to his voice. He could do like the shrieking, screaming type singing that reminds me of like a Robert Plant or Axl Rose or Brian Johnson or something. But I actually enjoyed his, I think, even more, and I like those singers. And then, but he has a clean style that I was kind of really listening closely today. I was like, who does he kind of remind me of when it's just his voice and the piano? Kind of remind me of like a Paul McCartney almost. There's almost like a Beatles vibe to some of their stuff. Yep. And then sometimes it reminds me, I mean, they're pretty dang heavy. I don't know if they were classified as rock or metal, but to me, they're definitely metal. They got some stuff that's like way heavier than probably some Judas Priest stuff from the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes they remind me of Priest, Dio. Even sometimes they remind me of Styx. So just that combination, that opera meets rock. I'm guessing Queen was a big influence on them. Maybe you know. Okay.
Yep. Oh yeah, all the bands you mentioned. And matter of fact, Beatles in particular. I mean, John talks about Lennon and McCartney being his, two of his biggest influences all the time. And matter of fact, when he had a stroke a few years back, he lost the ability to play.
Oh wow!
And after a lot of physical therapy, he was sort of teaching himself to play piano again.
Okay.
With 2 Beatles. And it was like what he thought to do was just sit down and just try to hack away at Beatles songs and get back into playing shape. And so yeah, he's a huge fan of that. And yeah, I mean, in the liner notes he mentions Queen, he mentions The Who, he mentions Beatles, Sabbath, all those influences they would have been pulling
from. Yeah, I could definitely hear all those. Yeah.
And then the other piece is I guess Paul was sending John to different, Broadway shows, Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, okay.
And
see, that's what I'm hearing. I was like, man, he'd be a great Phantom.
Yeah. He was like, go check this stuff out, and had a lot of ideas for them. I mean, basically, when they started working with him, the sky was the limit, because when you go back and you check out Power of the Night, you can get a sense of where they probably would have peaked.
Okay.
Without him, and that's a Max Norman production. And it's a good album, but that might have been it, and would have been probably just lost in the myriad of those types of bands, and certainly they would have been done without Paul, because Paul basically, pulled them out of complete poverty after their next record, Fight for the Rock. They were about done. They were about to give it up, and he was like, "No way, you guys going to give this up," and basically just paid off their debts and said, "The only thing I'm going to ask in return is that you let me write with you guys." And
that's cool.
Not only that, but I mean, he became the proverbial 5th member. I mean, he was supplied so much in terms of ideas and creativity, and really challenged them. I mean, John said he was away for a year working on Streets, just in the studio nonstop. Really pushing those guys.
Yeah, there's some crazy vocal stuff on that.
Mm-hmm.
That must have taken forever to record, I mean.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well,
yeah.
Keep me posted on other Savatage stuff you check out, and
happy to go on this journey.
Nice. Yeah. Well, good to have you on board there, bro.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, wrap this one up here.
Yeah. So hope you enjoyed our latest installment of Make a Fan Out of You. I am currently a Savatage fan. I didn't think I'd say that after all these years, but yeah.
Nice.
So thanks for stopping by, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Two Bros, One Beard. Take care.